A quick note before we begin. This episode is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at theauthorinside.com/freebook. Choose from over 180,000 titles. Go to theauthorinside.com/freebook.
You're listening to the Author Inside You podcast, a weekly podcast designed to motivate you to finish writing a book, choose a publisher, and build an audience. Keep listening if you're looking to get propelled into the next chapter of your life. And now, it's the Author Inside You podcast.
Hello, I'm Matt Rafferty.
And I'm Leah Rafferty.
Joining us today is Stephanie Wang, author of Epidemiology Unmasked. It is a book that provides an easy approach to understanding infectious disease outbreaks. Welcome, Stephanie. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Matt and Leah, for having me.
Wow, Stephanie, you are 16 years old. You're a junior in high school. How did you write this book?
Yeah, so that's something that I often ask myself as well. So when I first started seeing the outbreak go around and started seeing that this was a real serious event and it's not something to be taken lightly, I knew that I probably did not want to be sitting around and doing nothing for the community. So it's actually been a while. I have been studying epidemiology for a while. And since 7th grade, I have been participating in a science competition called Science Olympiad.
Yay, we have two daughters who did that while they were in high school.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's awesome. I really love this tournament, and it's really taught me so much about science and really sparked my passion in a lot of these events. So one of these events, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but it's called Disease Detectives, which is,
very difficult, I remember.
It is a difficult event, but it's also very fun. And that's one of my favorite events that I've ever done. And this event is actually focusing on epidemiology and public health and basically teaches competitors about how to go about investigating an outbreak investigation. So I've been competing in this event for would be my 5th year now.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, since 7th grade. And so I've learned a lot through this event, a lot of information about infectious diseases and epidemiology. So whenever this outbreak hit, in this pandemic eventually, I was actually very interested in what was going on. And so I saw around me and in my community and throughout the country that there was some frustration among people and some lack of responsibility among some people. I felt like I started wondering, like, why is this happening? Why is not everyone taking this very seriously? So that's when I started doing more research and seeing a lot of misinformation online and seeing a lot of just inaccurate things going around and some people being misinformed. So I started looking more into the root of this issue, and it sort of hit me that in school, if it wasn't for me participating in Science Olympiad and learning about epidemiology, I probably would be vulnerable to a lot of this misinformation that's going on around me as well. So that's what really inspired me to make this change and do this project. Throughout the spring months and into the summer months, I was working on this book. I actually self-published the book because I hadn't had any sort of prior experience in book writing or anything like that. But I also did a lot of research into which sort of publishing would be the best. And I sort of looked at two main concerns, and the first one was timing. And of course, self-publishing is a lot quicker than traditional. I really wanted to get the book out there as soon as possible since there was a lot of cases going on, and I just really wanted to get it out there as soon as possible. So that was one reason why I chose to self-publish. And the other one was because I know that traditional publishing, it's not very good with royalties, and self-publishing gives you much more freedom to do whatever you need to do with the book, and also grants more royalties because I wanted to use these royalties to donate them to like a local clinic that I usually volunteer at. So those were the two main reasons why I chose to self-publish. And yeah, so from then on, I've been doing a lot of advocacy work in public health education. Beyond just promoting the book, I've also been teaching classes to students virtually on just the basics of public health and basics of epidemiology, just to help prevent misinformation and help spark responsibility and make sure that people stay informed during these challenging times. So those are some of the major things that I've been doing beyond writing my books.
All right, well, Stephanie, you're still running circles over us. You just keep going. You have all this energy and but most importantly, the passion. That's what I hear, and that is so exciting to hear the passion come out of you. So congratulations on finding a passion at such a young age, and then also acting on that passion. So let's go back to, you said, okay, I'm going to write this book. How did you do it? Did you have certain hours, or what was your writing process?
So once I had the idea that I wanted to write a book, I knew that it was very time sensitive. I didn't want to postpone it for a long time. I didn't want to drag it out since it is a very time sensitive project. So what I did was, for about a month, I just worked on it for most of the day. I'd say about like 6 to 8 hours a day. Wow. Since it was the break and I didn't have much other to do besides this book. So that's what I worked on for most of the day for about a month. And then throughout the rest of the time, I also I worked on it, like the editing, the reviewing, things like that. That also took me about another month. So that's basically how I did it. And I knew that I didn't want to create a book that was very heavy in concepts and heavy in words, because I didn't want it to be like another epidemiology textbook that was sort of difficult to comprehend for first-time readers, because that's essentially who I really wanted to target, which was first-time readers, young students, people without much background in public health and epidemiology. Mm-hmm. So I made sure to include lots of fun illustrations, fun pictures, used easy to understand language that wasn't very dense, so that I could make sure that people from all levels of experience would be able to understand it. That's basically how I did the process of writing the book.
Excellent. So was your intention to write a textbook for other students?
Yeah, that was my intention, but I knew that I didn't want it to be a normal textbook. I wanted it to be sort of fun and interactive to read, have lots of fun pictures, things like that, because we all know that students don't really like to read textbooks for fun. So I just wanted to make sure it would be easy to understand. So I actually used a graphic design tool to create the majority of the book. This way I could include text that was designed in a visually appealing way, and also lots of visually appealing images as well.
Wow.
So that's how I wrote the majority of the book, through this graphic design tool.
So you did the illustrations in the book. That is so cool. So what program did you use?
So I used Canva, which is one of the most popular graphic design tools. It's very easy to use. I didn't have experience using it before, but I was able to be very familiar with it by the end.
Right.
So, yeah.
Leah and I use that all the time. I mean, we use it for our podcast and we use it for personal things. And, just when we're making a social media post, it's really great. Mm-hmm. The best thing is you can use so much of it for free without paying for the other version of it. It's really great.
Yeah, for sure.
So you wrote the book and you made the fun illustrations. Are you an artistic person?
I wouldn't consider myself a very artistic person, but luckily with Canva, it's actually very easy to do graphic design. They
Right.
have a lot of, they have a lot of already pre-made sort of designs, generic designs there.
Templates.
I just used the ones that they already had. Yeah, those are the ones that I used.
Great. So after you had the book written and you had the illustrations completed, how did you go about doing the layout?
So I ordered my book as five different chapters, and the first one was where I essentially introduced the reader to the infectious diseases background, like what are bacteria, viruses, things like that you need to know in order to comprehend the rest of the book. And the rest of the book, I essentially ordered it as a outbreak investigation. So I take the reader through the entire process of learning that there's an outbreak, and then collecting the data, then analyzing the data, and then eventually helping them understand how epidemiologists combat outbreaks, such as through prevention measures and things like that. And then in the end, I gave them some information on the most recent updates on COVID so that they would be safe and know what's going on. So that was essentially how I did the layout and how I ordered the information in my book, I had to also make sure that the information was correct, because I know that people may be not very willing to read something if they're not sure that the information is 100% accurate. So I did reach out to several public health professionals who helped me review my book and review the information in it and provided their feedback, and that was also very helpful.
Wow, that is wonderful that you reached out to people and they wrote back to you. Professionals?
Yeah, professionals. Since I live in Texas and in Houston, I know of some people in the Texas Medical Center or MD Anderson, that area. There's a lot of very prominent public health professionals there. I reached out to some of them, and some of them actually responded, which I was very happy about because I didn't expect many to respond.
Well, I'm just happy to hear, because I really believe we should all be supporting each other and helping each other, especially since you're the next generation. It's very important. Here you are, being an active citizen and trying to get knowledge out to others. So that is wonderful that people are here to support you, and it's just wonderful news to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
So it sounds like you did have a plan prior to actually starting to write. Is that correct?
Yeah, I definitely did have a plan. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just giving the reader information, because they can refer to a textbook to do that or online, because I wanted to make it something that would be fun to read, not just plain information that they would regurgitate. So what I did was, as I said earlier, I followed a investigation-based approach, because that's what I feel would be the most engaging for the reader, where they would be sort of interacting, they would be following through the steps of an epidemiologist and learning things as they go, so they feel like they're on sort of a mission at the beginning of and throughout the rest of the book. So that was my overall plan, yeah.
And that sounds actually wonderful, because a lot of people do learn by reading stories instead of just reading facts. You'll remember things, more details in a story setting. Not that yours is exactly a story, but you know what I'm saying. So good job. So what about editing the book? How did you hire an editor?
So I have external editors. I sort of did all of that on my own. And throughout the reviewing process, I just incorporated the suggestions that public health professionals had, and I made sure to read it several times to catch any sort of mistakes that I may have made. That was basically my editing process. After first editing it, I did find a lot of mistakes. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't have much of a budget. It suffices for now as just myself doing the editing.
Well, Stephanie, you reached out to public health professionals and asked them for advice on what you had written. But then I understand you received endorsements from some of them. How did that happen?
So I just asked what they thought. They provide public reviews on what they thought of the book, and they just provided several positive feedback and saying that my book is trustworthy and the information is presented is correct. So then I added those reviews to it publicly so that people would be more trusting of the information that I presented.
That is great. And then to follow up with that, a certificate of congressional recognition also?
Yes. So I was very excited that my book actually gained traction even outside of the public health realm and into the realm of public policy. So what happened was our congressman for the 22nd District of Texas, Congressman Olson, he recognized the work that I was doing in putting forth public health education as a priority, and also by doing work in writing my book and taking initiative to do so. And so he presented me with the certificate of congressional recognition to recognize the efforts that I've been doing and help encourage further efforts. So
wow.
Yeah.
Just
congratulations.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
So we always tell our audience, take the opportunities, and we tell our daughters too, take every opportunity. You do not know where it will lead you. And look what's going on with you at 16.
Yes, thank you so much.
It's said that 1,000 students have seen the book. How did you get the book in their hands?
Okay, so I ran a public health summer program with a nonprofit that I helped start. And with this nonprofit, we ran a full-blown public health summer program for them. And we got, along with some other subjects such as math and science and biology and things like that. But public health was, a big part of it. And so we got about 1,000 or so registrations from students all across our community, all across the country. And we did it virtually for 4 weeks during the summer. And throughout these 4 weeks, I basically used the curriculum from my book. I used this book as the curriculum guide to run the program with these students who registered for the program. As part of this program, I went over the information in my book to them. And also at the end, I basically told them what the process was of me identifying this societal issue and taking action towards alleviating it. So at the end of the class, I gave them some advice on how to do their own impactful social initiative and gave them some ideas on what they can do. So that was a big part of the class as well. So that was how I did most of my original outreach. And since then, I have been doing other forms of outreach. And recently, I spoke at this youth conference that was hosted by Rotary International, a district of the Rotary International nonprofit. I spoke at that conference just to help spread the word about the efforts that I've been doing and spread the word about the importance of public health education. So those are some examples of things that I've been doing to increase the outreach of my book and further allow people to understand how important it is to learn about epidemiology and learn about public health. So yeah, that's how I've been doing most of my outreach to the students.
So are you going to be taking Dr. Fauci's job pretty soon?
Oh, wow, thank you. But I hope eventually I can do something that is very impactful in my future career, something like what Dr. Fauci does all the time. So yeah.
Yes, well, it sounds like you're on the right path.
Right.
It's wonderful. It's so exciting to hear you speak and everything that you have done. I mean, like I said, the passion that you have is just wonderful to hear. Just absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
A brilliant idea, Stephanie, writing a book and then using it for your own curriculum to teach a class. Now, are teachers using it currently?
It's being used by students, but not in like schools, if that makes sense. So it's currently in my local library for students to check out and read. And also I am working with my science teacher to create a program or like a curriculum of sorts, a public health curriculum that's based on the information I present in my book, like the entire outbreak investigation, a curriculum based on that. That's what I've been working on recently, just to integrate public health education into the school curriculums, because I feel like the most lasting impact to be seen would be to make a change in existing policy, such as in educational policy, such as through curriculum design. So that's something that I'm working on currently.
That is fantastic that you're thinking so far ahead that other people can be using it down the road and then to make an impact on other students. Fantastic.
Thank you.
What was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome?
So I think during the writing process, there were several times that I felt very frustrated while I was writing the book, because when I was learning epidemiology and public health, I was never learning it in a way that I expected myself to be telling it as a textbook to younger students and students who don't really have much experience in learning this. So that was not how I originally was learning the subject. So I had to make sure that what I was writing down was applicable and easy to understand and just basically simplifies complicated information, but still including all of the necessary information that needs to be communicated. So basically, I would say the biggest challenge that I had in this writing process was just simplifying down the information, writing it in a way that is entertaining, writing it in a way that's applicable and easy to understand, but still very thorough and cohesive, and includes all the necessary points I wanted to cover in a way that would not be hard to understand. So that would probably be my biggest challenge.
Excellent. And right now, the book is available on Amazon?
Yes, it is available on Amazon, but it's also available on several other websites, such as lulu.com. That was the website that I originally used to self-publish the book. And also on the ebook version is also available on lulu.com. It's also available on Google Play. Those are the main places that you can find my book.
And how did you end up settling on lulu.com?
Yeah, so I was planning on originally self-publishing it through Amazon, but I saw that Lulu actually gives much is much better with royalties than Amazon. And as I originally said, royalties was a big part because I wanted to have more royalties to create like this positive feedback loop to donate masks and PPE with the money to the local clinic in my community. So I was able to do that with the money that I earned through Lulu because they were better with the royalty. Recently, I was actually able to donate about 1,000 or so masks to this local clinic in my area that serves underinsured patients. So that was a big part of why I chose Lulu.com over Amazon.
It's like we're interviewing a superhero.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, what does your family say? They must be so proud of you.
My parents are very, very supportive and have been very encouraging throughout this whole process. They were the ones who actually helped me look through some of the book information, gave me some guidance on what looked good, what I should include, like what things like that. They were very, very supportive throughout this whole process. And also, I have a younger brother who is 11 years old. And I actually asked them to help me read it and see how it was because his age group is sort of in the age group that I really wanted to target. So I asked him to help me read it and look at the information that I presented and see which parts he could understand, which parts he couldn't understand. And this way I could fix things that I feel like or he feels like could be improved for people in his age group, people sort of having the same background as him. Yeah, my parents and my brother. Very, very supportive. Yeah.
That's great to have your demographic right there at the dinner table.
For sure.
I mentioned this before in another podcast. So I really enjoy reading children's books because I find that, there's a lot of information, good information can be told through children's books and it doesn't get bogged down with details. So I believe that this would be a good book for everybody because it teaches, like you said, it will teach you the basics, but it's not so over your head and so wonderful. So I'm glad that this is a educational book for all ages.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's how I originally planned it to be, since I know that there are tons of epidemiology textbooks out there, but I really wanted to make something that was unique and something that's accessible, basically.
Wonderful.
Excellent. Well, Stephanie, what kind of advice do you have for somebody who's thinking about writing a book?
I think having a very good purpose as to what you want the book to be and how you want to structure it and why you think this book would be a good idea. I think having that purpose is very, very important because it really serves as the drive that gives you the motivation to continue writing and finishing the book. So I think that's a very important aspect of writing. And I would suggest for authors to ensure that they have a very strong drive or a very strong purpose for their book. So that's what I would suggest.
Excellent advice.
Actually, I have been listening to this podcast for a while now since writing and throughout the writing process. And it's really great to listen to all the authors and all the experiences that they've had. And yeah, I just really thank you guys for making this podcast and being able to bring on very inspirational people.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you to say.
Well, Stephanie, it's been so fun speaking with you, listening to your journey, and we wish you the best of luck, and we cannot wait to see what happens to you when you get older.
Thank you so much, Matt and Leah. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. It's been really fun.
Wow, it was so special to listen to Stephanie's story, and then for me to think about a young lady down in Texas listening to two people up in Ohio speaking to authors. That's pretty cool. So if you're like Stephanie and you listen to the Author Inside You podcast and you decided to write a book, please reach out to us and let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
And we started this podcast to motivate people to write their book.
So it's always wonderful to hear stories of how the motivation paid off.
Until next time.
Right on.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.